Coming up next on Let's Talk Tech, Twitter decides it's no longer going to ban harmful tweets from public figures, Facebook decides to be transparent all of a sudden, and we talk about the ongoing problem of deepfakes. Let's Talk Tech.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Talk Tech, the podcast where we talk about technology. I'm Aidan and that's Bryce.
What's up, everybody?
And we have a very interesting podcast this week. 4 major topics to talk about. Really big ones, and that's really unusual for us. We usually have, 2, 3 if we're lucky.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we are a day late with this episode. I will point that out. Things popped up. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we'll try not to let it happen again.
Yeah, we'll try not to let that happen again. But lots of big news to talk about this week, so I say we just jump right in and get started, honestly. So let's talk about Twitter really fast. So Twitter decided to make an interesting little decision.
Yeah.
That some people are a little frustrated about. Understandably, we gotta unpack it, I guess. I don't know. Twitter doesn't really like being in the negative press per se.
Yeah, like any social media.
Yeah, and so Twitter made an announcement that's getting a lot of scrutiny this week, I would say.
Yeah.
And Twitter decided basically to announce that they are no longer going to be removing harmful tweets that violate their rules if they're posted by a public figure. Which
is a really weird... It's unusual for them.
Yeah, because normally they just swing the ban hammer, it seems like.
Yeah.
Well, on people they like.
Yeah.
Or dislike, I should say.
Swing hammer, ask questions later. I don't know, it's really weird.
Because...
What does public figure mean?
So, apparently, well, I would assume verified check marks.
Okay.
Also 100,000 plus followers. And or a political figure. So, political figure makes you really think.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is
maybe,
why they're making this?
That might be the reason. It's one of the reasons, certainly.
Yeah, because, he said some, I wouldn't say outright rule breakers in the past, but he's gotten close.
He's skirted the line quite a bit.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have called for him to be banned off Twitter. And
this seems like kind of like an excuse of like,
oh,
we'll get away with it.
Yeah, we have this rule. We can't do that.
Yeah, basically.
I don't know.
I don't know. I will just quickly point out, I've always felt like public figures on Twitter, the rules have always been less for them. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because, it seems like they get away with a lot more than... I've always I call it blue checkmark privilege on Twitter. If they get a blue check, they get away with saying almost anything, it feels like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just... It seems like I'll see a tweet that's probably bad, and it's usually by someone who's a blue checkmark. Maybe something, I don't know. I can't really think of any examples, but something that's bad. Somewhat harmful... somewhat hate speech, kind of, but not really. And I'll think to myself, wow, could I tweet this? And the answer would be no, I would get banned. But why is this blue checkmark being able to say it?
Yeah, they definitely treat smaller people and bigger people a lot differently. I think that's out of necessity, though. When you think about it, they aren't one one group or one person moderating. Yeah. It's a whole group of moderators. So I feel like, we already saw this with the Donald Trump timeout thing. People want to ban these big figures too. I'm sure moderators have been like, well, we should ban this person.
We should probably
ban smaller people for the same reason. But I think Twitter's higher ups, and I assume there's at some point you have to go consult somebody bigger before banning this person if they have enough followers. I assume they're just trying to protect themselves.
So, it is worth noting that Twitter will hide the tweet, and it's actually kind of interesting. They'll put up this little message that says, hey, this tweet violates our rules. But because it's worthy of public interest, you can tap this button to view it if you want. Which makes me think, don't you think that would bring more attention to the tweet itself? If you see that little notice there, and it's like, I wonder what they said. That's against the rules, but I can still see it if I press this button.
It's like the sensitive content thing on Instagram.
Yeah.
Everybody looks at them. If somebody you're following posts that and it has sensitive content, you click it.
Yeah.
It's just you want to know what's behind it. It's the unknown.
It's like what's behind the curtain.
Yeah. Everybody's going to look at them. I think it's sort of a way for them to... I think it's kind of them not wanting to moderate everything.
What do you mean?
So, like, if you look at YouTube, they have... So there's something called shadow banning, we think, on Twitter. It hasn't been confirmed, but...
Yeah, I would say there's kind of been rumors about shadow banning. I mean, James O'Keefe tried to prove it in the past, and Twitter kind of dodged it, like, oh, we don't do that. But it's quite obvious that Twitter hides stuff that their algorithms think aren't appropriate. Like, you have to tap more replies, or you have to type show replies that may include sensitive content or something like that.
Yeah, so they try and hide stuff, and I think YouTube does that to some extent. They don't hide it. Well, their algorithm does that to some extent.
Yeah, YouTube takes a much different approach. On Twitter, it's like you have to show more tweets or show more replies.
Yeah.
On YouTube, the algorithm literally buries it practically.
Yeah, and on YouTube, if it doesn't bury it, if you're somebody big with a lot of influence on YouTube, which it does happen quite a bit there, you just get demonetized.
Yeah.
I mean, and YouTube doesn't really take down... They do take down videos that really, really violate their rules, but they can't police every single video on their website. They just can't do that.
Yeah.
That's why there's some pirated movies on there and stuff like that. They can't catch everything. It's so hard for
these platforms are so massive. It's so hard to catch every single little thing, which is why I think this is an interesting approach, because if they're not moderating public figures as much, which we've already said, they're kind of lax when it comes to public figures. What I think is interesting is, well, don't you think they should moderate the public figures more strictly? Because the public figures have more influence. Yeah,
I mean, they're sort of the face of Twitter.
Kind of.
Like a Twitch partner is on Twitch.
Yeah.
Except not sort of partnered with Twitter.
Regardless, they're people who have more exposure on that particular social media platform.
It's somebody who's been recognized by the platform.
Yes. And don't you think, like I said, more influence, more people pay attention to that. Don't you think that a harmful tweet there would have much more impact than a harmful tweet made by someone with 2 followers on Twitter?
Yeah.
Where the tweet reaches nobody? It
would definitely have a bigger impact. I think, though, they're trying to moderate less. I think it's a weird approach to moderate less and don't moderate the bigger guys. But, I mean, to some extent, the bigger guys are going to be more careful. Somebody who has no followers can say whatever they want, and they're not going to... There's no backlash for it, really.
Yeah.
There's no hundreds and hundreds of people sending them hate because of that. There's no thousands and thousands of people coming and reporting them and all that. They don't need to be safe about that. They don't need to be careful.
But the rule itself explicitly applies to public. And I don't know, it seems like almost more work, because now, say someone tweets something bad. Let's just say, I don't know, hypothetically here, Donald Trump says something bad. Now their Twitter team, their Twitter trust and safety team, has to go in and manually determine, a nice little battle at Twitter HQ, do we delete the tweet? Do we hide it? Do we leave it up? What did they do?
Is it harmful? Is it hate speech? Is it...
Okay, so what's interesting, though, the definition here is interesting. They say harmful tweets. What's a harmful tweet?
Yeah, I mean, what is the definition of a harmful tweet? Because we already know hate speech isn't allowed on there.
Hate speech is harmful, per se. So then, what is this new blanket term? I've never heard this before. I mean, like, we debated this a couple weeks ago on the show. What is hate speech? And we found ourselves a rough definition, but they leave these definitions blank for a reason, and that is so they can enforce it the way they want to enforce it. But what on earth is this new term? So we're still trying to figure out what on earth hate speech is. And now we have a new term called harmful speech?
Yeah, I mean, my only guess as to a definition for harmful speech is something negative towards a person. Maybe? That's the only thing I can come up with. But that's already been allowed. You can already say, hey, I hate this person. That's why we have Twitter beefs.
Yeah.
You can already say these things. So are they just... I really don't understand what harmful speech is.
No, and that's what I'm... That's not what I'm getting right now.
Yeah.
It seems another, like, a vague term, almost vaguer than hate speech.
Yeah, it really opens the door for them to say... it sort of says, hey, we're making rules. We aren't going to ban these large people. But if they really want to ban one of these large people, they say, hey, well, that's not harmful speech. That's hate speech. Well, that's not covered under harmful speech. So, that's a step above. Like,
so if you break one of the blanket rules, you're okay. But if you somehow break both of them, the stars align, and somehow it's harmful and hateful.
Yeah, I mean,
you're gone.
At some point, you've. I think really what this is them trying to go into the public eye and say, hey, you know we've banned a lot of people in the past, and we've been really moderating. We're not going to do that to check marks. We're going to not allow them to post harmful speech. If we think it's in the public's good, we're going to allow them to post that, but we're just going to hide it.
But what harmful stuff is in the public's good?
We're gonna allow them to post harmful stuff if it's in the public's good. But really,
I wouldn't say good interest. I think
in
is the
public,
word.
or if it's in the public's interest.
Yeah,
they're going to allow you to post that. Really, what they're saying here is we're going to allow people to post what we want them to post still. And we're going to say to you guys, we're allowing them to post whatever they want. But really, if they post something we don't like, we're just going to ban them still. We're still going to delete it.
Yeah.
We just say it qualifies under a different rule.
Yeah.
Because this rule really doesn't do anything.
It seems almost like stuff that borderline breaks the rules. This is a way of them kind of getting away with that. But if they find something that they just absolutely hate, they're still going to get rid of it, I would assume.
Personally, I don't think this changes much. I think this rule...
Well, I think what this changes is now all of a sudden we're going to see this brand new label. And now people are going to become very suspicious of this label. You know what I mean? Well, why is that tweet labeled as breaking the rules, but I can still see it? It's like, I don't know, a criminal breaks a law in real life. And instead of them putting him in jail, putting the criminal in jail, they just put a blanket on top of him. He's still allowed to roam around, to do whatever, but now he's got this blanket on top of him. Does that make sense?
It's just hiding.
Yeah. Hiding in plain sight. You can still see the blanket, and if you want, you can take the blanket off and see what's underneath the blanket.
I think the only thing that this is going to change, first of all, I don't think this is going to change what they allow and what they don't allow on their platform.
No, definitely not.
To this is just classifying other tweets that they don't like as harmful. This is just going to classify and divide things even more. That's all it's going to do.
And it's going to create a lot more public outrage when, like I said, I like to use this example of Donald Trump because he's this public figure who says some divisive things at times. Don't you think that they're just, I don't know, say they decide to mark it as violates the rule but not banned?
I don't think it's going to cause that much outrage.
I think it would, because the other day I was on Twitter. I'll give you a brief example. And there's this one group of people, they post some articles. I think it's the folks over at Lone Conservative. They're like these groups of college students or something like that. And they post these right-leaning stuff. Okay. And it was brought to my attention that whenever they post stuff on Twitter, apparently their articles get marked as sensitive content. Even though it's not sensitive content. So you have to press that little button that says view content in order to see their articles. And they're obviously very suspicious of this. Is it political bias? Probably not. It's just an algorithm glitch. You know what I mean? It's not like anyone's unfairly targeting them. I would hope not. Otherwise, that seems kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like this brand new rule. Anytime there's a new rule, there's ways for that rule to be used in a way that's not fair.
I don't really think there's a way for this rule to be used in a way that is fair.
Yeah.
I mean, what circumstance are we going to use this rule that's going to make it better for the platform? What way is it going to be fair to the small people and the large people? No way.
No.
If this rule goes along like we think it might, if it goes along like we think it is, then it's just going to create unfair biases towards people with check marks.
And like I said, I've already been suspicious of this in the past where they're way more lax with the rules with check marks.
Yeah.
I think it's nice that they're now being more transparent and saying, you know what, we're not doing that.
Yeah, they're being transparent in a very untransparent way, though.
That's so true.
They're being, hey, we are going to do this. We're being transparent about it. We're going to say this. But then they also create these terms like harmful speech, like public influencers. Yeah. There are two parts of this that can be interpreted any way they want, and they get
and
to
the
decide.
more stuff that they can interpret any way they want, the more it can be used to favor one group and not favor another, and that's not free speech.
Yeah, that's not free speech. That's picking and choosing, which it's there,
which they can do.
They can do legally.
Which sucks, honestly. But I mean, the alternative would be the government getting in charge of how they can play the rules, and that's not any better.
Yeah, honestly, it seems like typical Twitter to me.
Yeah,
it seems like typical Twitter coming in saying, "Hey, we're the good guy here," and then doing something that's bad, something a bad guy would do.
Yeah.
I don't really see this changing much on Twitter. We'll have to see if it does actually change anything.
We'll have to see if there are any notable uses of it when they do start using it.
Honestly,
and any outrage if that does happen.
Yeah, we'll have to see with it. I don't see it changing anything. I don't think that's something that's going to happen. I think it's going to put a barrier over some tweets. Maybe a few people are like, "Hey, that's kind of weird. Why are we doing this?"
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, Twitter's going to have the same tweets it would without this rule. Just some of them are going to be a little bit hidden.
And that's fair, honestly. Sure, there are some blanket terms, and that's annoying. But that's how they're operating right now. That's how they're choosing to operate, and there's not much you can do about that. I would say what's annoying, to me at least, is that we're allowing these public figures to get away with more and more rules. We're letting them push the boundaries more and more. Mm-hmm. And I would say that promotes toxicity. That doesn't stifle toxicity on the platform.
Yeah. I think it also promotes speech, though, and talking about important topics.
But if they're allowed to do it, then why can't anyone?
Yeah, it's not fair. It's not fair. But
it's life.
I'd rather have everybody treated like the public, public influencers, rather than the public influencers treated like everyone else.
I would rather... I don't know. I mean, I think this whole idea of treating public influencers special is a bit ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. I just want everybody to be treated like them.
Yeah.
I want us to go forward for free speech, not backwards.
And I mean, let's be honest here. A public figure is going to piss people off regardless.
Oh, yeah.
They get mass reported all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they say something that's controversial. And maybe this is why they're including this rule. Because oftentimes someone says something that's controversial. One side of the aisle just decides to report it, mass report it, and the other side doesn't care because the other side agrees with it. And what ends up happening, maybe this is a way of solving those kinds of problems. Maybe it tries to we'll somewhat do something, but not go all the way. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Maybe that's what they're trying to do?
I don't know. I think we're just going to have to see how this turns out.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to figure out Twitter's motivation here.
Mm-hmm. Maybe they'll tell us. They probably won't.
No, they never let us know their motivations.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people don't trust these big platforms right now.
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody should trust Twitter.
Yeah.
They've acted so untrustworthy.
I mean, remember our whole social media bias rankings that we did a couple of weeks ago, and I gave them an F?
Oh, yeah, I don't remember what I gave them, but it was better than YouTube. That's changed.
Yeah.
I think YouTube and Twitter are right down there with Fs.
Yeah, I mean, they just... Speech is, I would say, at a low when it comes to social media. And maybe that means we need to bring in new social media that promotes more speech.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't say the whole hate speech thing is necessarily bad.
No, it's good to not have hate speech on your platform.
As long as you clearly define those rules.
Yeah, rules are made to be not broken. Rules aren't made to be... I mean, it's a rule. It's not an omnipotent power that can decide whatever it wants.
Yeah, and not much more to say about it. I mean, is it completely insane? Not really. Is it a little annoying? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see how Twitter decides to use this and any reaction or anything like that. But that's really all we've got for that segment. All right. So next up here, let's talk a little bit about Facebook, because now Facebook is being a bit more transparent with their new updates to their terms of service, which is pretty interesting. Yep. They're explaining some things more clearly in their terms of service, which is good, I guess. I don't know. I mean, first up, we see Twitter being more transparent.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing
Transparently untransparent.
Now we're seeing Facebook be transparent. I would argue they're being more transparent. Facebook is now better clearly explaining how their targeted advertising works, which is interesting in their terms of service. So they put it out in plain text how targeted advertising works, which is great. Yeah. I mean, good for them. Nobody reads the terms of service anyways.
Yeah.
But
for the people who do, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, for the 2 people out there who have actually read the Facebook terms of service, one of them being Facebook's lawyer and the other person being the assistant to Facebook's lawyer.
Yeah, for the 2 people who keep up to date with Facebook's terms of service.
Yes, exactly. But they explain targeted advertising. I think this is really great because the general public doesn't really know how targeted advertising works. And I think that's important that we educate them on that. And maybe in terms of service isn't exactly the best way to do it. Maybe you put it a help document or something like that, or maybe you put it in your settings somewhere, your app settings. But I don't know. The general public doesn't understand targeted advertising. That's something we really need to work on, I think.
Yeah, I mean, most people think it's kind of like the devil, like it's where they're gonna steal our money.
Yeah, they think it's like stalking you.
Yeah, it's not really.
No.
It does have quite a bit of information. Some you may not want it to have. But at the end of the day, it doesn't have as much information as people think. Really.
So, I mean, like, let's be honest here. Targeted advertising is basically Facebook knows stuff about you. And Facebook uses that knowledge about you, which you've given them voluntarily. And the terms of service says they're allowed to use that information to match advertisers with you. So Facebook plays the middleman, basically, matching ads with you. So Facebook knows what the advertisers want, and Facebook knows what you are. Advertisers want certain people. You want certain things. Yeah, it's like a perfect match type of thing. And I would say that's mostly ethical as long as the company doesn't know too much about you. You know what I mean? Like, they're not listening to you all the time or something like that. You get what I'm saying? I would say it's right to a certain extent. Like, they can use it, you know, your age, what kind of interests you do on the app, you know, things like that. When it becomes a little bit creepy is when they stalk everything you do online. And a lot of people, what happens is Facebook tracks a lot of what you do outside of Facebook. And so people just assume that Facebook tracks everything. And that's not necessarily true. You know what I mean?
They track a lot, though.
They do.
And you can see this. So a lot of people say, hey, I was on Instagram and I got an ad for this thing I've never searched for on Instagram. And they say, isn't that so creepy? Instagram is stealing my information. When really, if you searched on Facebook, Instagram's going to know. Yeah. Because they're linked.
Or if you went, say, on a website, maybe you went to, I don't know, look up paper on Staples or something like that. And Staples maybe has that little Facebook like button. You know what I mean? Like the little button, like us on Facebook. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that little like button is something called the Facebook Pixel. And what that does, not to be confused with the Google Pixel, it's this little script that gets embedded in websites. Websites will embed Facebook's little script, you know, for the benefit of getting to use things like that little like button. And Facebook will track you as you work your way around the website. Yeah, around the internet.
Yeah, and it's kind of scary. It's weird, more like it. I mean, really, it makes sense why they do this, and they aren't using the information maliciously. Really, no, they're just using it for ads. As far as we know, and they've let us know. And
as far as we know, they aren't using it maliciously.
I mean, unless Mark Zuckerberg is some sort of evil villain collecting data, which, I mean, if the rumors have it correct, he is a lizard. So, I mean,
the all-seeing eye of
the all-seeing eye of Mark Zuckerberg, the reptilian. But, I mean, really, they're only using it for advertising, if we're being realistic.
Yeah, and it would be kind of ridiculous to use it for other things, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen it used other places. It mostly is just advertising. So, at the end of the day, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Targeted advertising actually helps me. I get to see things that I'm interested in more. I get to look at products and look at things that play to me, not something that somebody maybe in my age range would like.
And a lot of people make that argument who are very informed on how targeted advertising works. They realize how it works, and they realize that it's beneficial because it can match you up with products that you may not have heard of, but you might like. And that's kind of the perfect match, like we were saying. It's matching companies to the consumer, which is great because before then, what did you have? You had television or radio ads where you're matching up with a much more general audience.
Yeah, just widely spread.
Whatever the TV show is, basically. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's a lot better, and it's a lot more effective, and it's a lot nicer because you see ads most of the time that you would actually want to see.
Yeah, and people fear that, like, well, what if it gets so good that it knows exactly what I want to buy, and then it just targets it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, like,
it's like
they try to get, that's one of the things that people are so concerned about, and that's why I say the whole ethics of all of this, you know, because a lot of these advertisements, they get the ads to you within minutes of you doing that action. As soon, because if you're thinking about travel vacations, and you go to some travel site, and someone wants to send you travel ads, they have to get that advertisement to you while you're looking at travel stuff. Or right after of it, while it's still in your mind. Yeah. So I mean, there's an importance to it that a lot of people don't realize is they have to get it just right.
To some extent, I would say people who fear that they're going to give you stuff that you can't say no to. A deal so good, and they're going to get so specialized that it runs you out of house and home. To those people, I'd say it's never going to get that good.
Yeah.
You always are going to be able to say no to a product. It's never going to get that good. One thing it needs is information. And you would be surprised how you know yourself better than anybody else. So it's okay. You can imagine what you would want.
But the problem is that a lot of people are making the argument now that they think that Facebook knows them better than they know themselves.
There's no way for that.
I would make that argument with Google.
There's
Google knows a lot about me because I do the whole, and I mean, you give this information away voluntarily. I want to make this point very clear. Most of the time you're giving the information away to them voluntarily, and they have every right to use it until you take that away, which is normally just deleting the account. Yeah. But Google, like, tracks everywhere I go. Google tracks everywhere I am on the web, you know, Chrome, stuff like that. They track everywhere I go in real life. They track a lot of things. Google knows everywhere I've been for the past, like, 2 years. Thanks to location tracking on my smartphone. Does that make sense? I don't know everywhere I've been in the past 2 years. So technically, in some way, they know you better than you know yourself.
They have a better memory. But really what they're getting here is broad strokes.
True.
They know where you go. They know that. But that's really broad things. What I'm talking about is people who are fear that the ads are going to get so targeted and so specialized for them that they're not going to be able to say no. And I know people who fear this. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, that seems ridiculous. They can't get that
specialized. The thing is, they need this information. They need to have a way to collect this information. They collect it from websites. They collect it from location. But they're never going to be able to collect your thoughts, per se.
So then if you're that concerned about it, why don't you just, I don't know, not give them the information? You don't have to use this stuff. I know we've said before on the show, not using this stuff is incredibly hard.
It's very difficult. But at the end of the day, you can still do it. You can live a life without it. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But it's still possible. So at the end of the day, this stuff is targeted, and they have a lot of information about you, but they don't have nearly enough to do anything very, very harmful with advertising. We're just talking about advertising here.
Yes.
If they use this information in other places, that could be very, very bad. But they're just using it for advertising, as far as we know. In advertising, they don't have enough information to do anything near what the Armageddon levels people are thinking with this advertising. This targeted advertising is advanced, yes, and it's very cool, I would say. I enjoy it. And when you know about it, you can enjoy it. But it's never going to get to a dangerous point, really.
I think that's an interesting point that you make. If you know about it, you can enjoy it.
Yeah. If you know about this, I mean, personally, I like the idea. I watch anime, and I watch a certain show. And I the other day, I got an ad for a movie that's coming out at the end of the month for this show. And I didn't know how it got that to me. But I knew that it probably looked at my search results. I probably searched for it on Google, and then it looked through, and it looked for what I had searched for.
So it kind of educated you.
Educated me about something that I'm going to go see now. It was very cool. And I was like, wow, I really enjoy this.
So we're getting to the point now where advertisements are not just a bothersome.
No, they're becoming interesting facts for you. They're becoming very good. Beneficial.
And isn't that just a little bit scary?
A little bit, but at the end of the day, I don't see it as scary. What part of this is scary to me? Nothing. It made my life better. Therefore, why would I be scared of it?
But there's a lot of people out there who are just, no matter what, annoyed by advertisements. They're always going to hit that skip ad button on YouTube.
But we're trying. That's what these advertisements are trying to do. Advertisements are never going to stop. For those people, unless you pay for a service that doesn't have advertisements, advertisements are never.
Because you got to fund this stuff somehow.
You have to fund it somehow. Advertisements are never going to stop. What these services are trying to do for those people is make it less of a bother and make it more of a feature or informative. And
I think that's a very interesting take on targeted advertising. Targeted advertising doesn't have to be this evil, weird, creepy thing. It can be useful. It can be helpful as long as they get it just right. And I would say part of getting it just right is making sure you also get the ethics of it just right.
Yeah. You definitely have to make sure you get the ethics right. All right, so now we're going to talk about something a little bit scary. Not a little bit, a lot. We already talked about ads, which I don't think are scary, but some people do. But this is genuinely scary.
Yeah, I think that everyone who watches or listens or whatever could agree that this is terrifying. This is technology gone too far, close to too far. So what we're talking about, of course, is deepfakes and the fear behind those. Yep. And there is a lot of fear behind these. Yep. They are scary. So basically what a deepfake is, for anybody who's not educated, and they've been around for a while, so we're just now getting to this. Deepfakes are videos with of a person. So they're faked videos of a person that are hyper-realistic. They look basically and sound exactly like the person they are trying to imitate, or very close. And that is terrifying.
Yeah, you can basically put words in someone's mouth, which is completely terrifying.
Or take someone who looks like someone else and put them into a video by editing the face, as long as you've got the same body type.
Yeah, I mean, I'm scared.
There's no other way of describing this other than, whoa. Yeah. Like, the ethics behind this could be, sure, you could make a funny meme.
Yeah, and there have been like
memes of Obama and stuff like that,
and Nicolas Cage in movies where he shouldn't be in them.
Yeah, exactly. So you can make, and that's debatable. I'd say it's okay, but still questionable as long as people aren't fooled by it. Yeah, but there's also some very bad consequences behind this. You could put something in literally whatever you want.
Yeah, you could put somebody in a situation that they weren't in. You could frame people for things. You could fraud. It's huge. The dangerous possibilities.
And when done right, I mean, you could totally screw up and mess up and make it totally obvious that it was edited. But when done right, I would make the argument that it's you can't tell.
Yeah, and I mean, there are even new developments to this which are making it look even better.
And the new developments are not only making it even better.
Yeah,
they're making it even easier to make these.
One thing to talk about quickly is the difficulty of this. Deepfakes essentially is like photoshopping a face onto someone. Roughly, that's a very basic thing. That's sort of what it's like. So imagine.
Yeah, so think of like those memes or whatever where it's someone's face and then someone else's face superimposed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I can't think of an example, but something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about that, but instead of it just being a picture, it's each individual frame of a video getting processed.
So 60 frames per second for a minute-long video, that's so much data. And these are 1080p videos, and it's even better than a Photoshop. It's
when done right, it's 1080p videos.
Yeah, 1080. So these videos take days and days to complete. People were outsourcing to the cloud to do some of these.
Mm-hmm.
It's really difficult. But now with these new developments, it's becoming a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's taking less time to make them. Mm-hmm. You're needing less images and sources, videos and stuff in order to make them. And that means it's way more accessible to the public. You're no longer are you really needing people to rent out cloud GPUs, you know what I mean? Now people are just using it off of their home computers and stuff like that. That makes it way more accessible, and that means more people have access to this tool, and more people having access to this tool means a lot more deepfakes are now roaming out there on the internet. Yeah,
and this is scary. I don't think anybody. I mean, there are some good things that can be done with this. Voices for people who have lost their voice. The memes are kind of funny. They're pretty good. I know I enjoy the Nicolas Cage ones. Those are kind of funny to me. They make me laugh. But the fact that this could get at some point to a point where we can't tell the difference, where there could be a video of somebody floating out there that's completely fake that nobody can tell.
Yeah.
Putting words in their mouth. I mean, and not even that. The idea that then somebody could use the excuse, oh, well, this video of me doing this one thing is clearly fake. It's a deep fake.
Yeah, so you're saying some people could take actual evidence and claim it was fake.
And just claim it was fake. That, I mean, the possibilities here for fraud and dangerous activities is very large.
Shut it down. Shut the internet down. No, we're done. Computers gone. Tech podcast over.
Unplug it all.
We're done. This is no.
We've gone too far this time.
This is taking.
What have we done?
We're overcomplicating real life now.
Yeah, when fakes are coming into the real life, this is scary. This is really weird. And right now you can tell what's fake. You can tell deep fakes. Mm-hmm. And people are saying in the future it could get worse and worse and worse. And to some extent, I think that could happen. I don't know how near that.
Think about the technological advancements recently, though.
Yeah.
Because a year ago, the best graphics cards were mainly just gaming cards. But now people are putting in graphics cards that used to be your cloud graphics cards.
Oh, yeah.
You get things used for cloud processing.
Now what's commercially available is research-grade cards.
Yeah.
Cards, the top of the line, meant for scientific researchers to simulate molecules.
Think about it. You could get the graphics capabilities to make this stuff easily, cheaper than you could buy the new Mac Pro.
Yeah. Which we went on a rant on.
Yeah, a couple episodes ago. You guys will only get it if you've seen that episode.
Yeah,
but still.
It's scary. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see how this goes. And people are already talking about ways to check if it's a deepfake. And the government is working on ways to recognize deepfakes.
I wonder if there's some sort of way to kind of hide in them that they're a fraud.
Mm.
So think about this. Kind of a funny little story for you.
Mm-hmm.
When color printing first became a thing, you had your Xerox machines and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually a secret code embedded into the ink of printers. Mm-hmm. Very small, and you can go look this up on Wikipedia, little yellow dots that would get spread all over a piece of paper when you printed it out in a Xerox machine or whatever. This is not some conspiracy theory or anything like this. This is well documented. You know what I mean? These little yellow dots would get printed on your paper. Very tiny. You can't see them with the naked eye. That were actually binary code, giving away the time and date that it was printed out. So that this way, they could identify fraudulent currency, because that was a big concern when color printing became more mainstream. Was crap, people are going to use this for things they shouldn't be using it for.
Yeah.
So now we have these deep fake things. Do you think there's maybe some way that we could hide in a signature, or do you think that would just get circumvented?
I think it just gets circumvented. To hide in a signature like that.
But I mean, this signature here in the color printers wasn't noticed for decades. It took like 2 decades until there was finally an article written about it.
The thing is,
and even longer before people cracked the code of what each little dot meant.
With something like a Xerox printer, there are other ways to figure out if currency is not real. It's very easy. If you just print it out on a Xerox printer, then yes, there are very easy ways to tell.
Yeah.
But with something like a deepfake, we would be completely relying on this embedded code. 100% relying on it. And for us to rely 100% on that to decide somebody's freedom, whether or not they go to jail.
And then the problem of embedding that code in the first place.
Yeah, and the problem of what if it gets circumnavigated, or what if it gets cut out by somebody, and then they start making deepfakes of people. Oh, well, this one's real. We can tell it's real because it doesn't have this code. But it actually is fake.
Yeah. So maybe that's not necessarily the best idea. We're too late to put that in, probably.
We would have to have put that in a long time ago. At this point, I think, personally, I don't know how fast this is going to develop. I think we have some time to develop new ways. And I, personally, don't have an idea for how to fix this. I'm right about everything, but I have nothing to do here.
I'm clueless as well. So
I just
if we can't determine a solution, who can?
Yeah, I mean,
this is the best tech podcast after all.
Yeah, I mean, we are the experts in every single field. So if we can't, maybe somebody else can. I personally hope somebody finds a way to fix this and figure out what's deepfakes, because this is very scary.
Do you think, though, that the problem will get worse over time?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Because I mean, we're seeing advancements in it already.
Unless somebody finds a way to tell if something is a deepfake, this will get worse over time.
How though? How do we determine? How do we just play honor system? I mean, if the person claims it wasn't them, do we just take their? I
don't know.
Because all of a sudden now we have a really easy way of falsifying what used to be the most trustworthy evidence out there. Video evidence was the most trustworthy evidence out there, and suddenly that can be really easily falsified.
At this point, we are hoping that the people who invented this, the researchers who did this, know of some way to tell if it's fake. Because otherwise, this is going to get to a point where we can't tell. And then our main form of evidence for many cases has to be thrown out. And if that happens, that's really scary.
Or do we just only accept certain types of evidence?
Yeah.
If the video maybe is too complicated to have been faked.
If we can determine the time and date, determine that the actual person was at that place. If it's a security camera, determine that there actually is a security camera.
Yeah, but then the consequences of this not only fall in the world of law, they also fall in the world of just social media in general. You could deep fake a celebrity doing whatever you want and suddenly spread out a bad rumor or something about them. You know what I mean? I mean, it was social media these days. Everything spreads so fast and so quickly.
Yeah.
By the time people determine it's fake, it can be way out of control. Think about that one. Remember that one edited, deceptively video that the White House posted back in January? No. When the whole Jim Acosta thing was going on. For those who haven't heard of this, basically, Jim Acosta, he's like the CNN White House correspondent. He got in this very, very, very big fight with the White House press secretary, Sarah Sanders, at the time. And, well, it was a confrontation. Okay. And there's two sides to the story. One side claimed that he pushed her, and the other side claimed that she was trying to take the mic out of his hands. And the White House defended themselves by posting a video, and quickly the press realized that a portion of the video had been somewhat sped up. I don't know exactly what the specifics of this were, but it was enhanced
Mm-hmm.
to look a certain way. But by the time that had been determined, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Very few people actually cared that the White House had posted a video that had been very subtly edited.
Yeah, and this is with celebrities, with actual court cases, with any place where video is consulted for the facts.
Even just in the public sphere,
Yeah,
like on social media.
This will affect immensely. And it's crazy, and it's just going to keep getting worse unless we find some way around it. Honestly, shut down the internet. I don't know.
Yeah, basically. I mean, what do we do? We've gotten to a point. I mean, you can make the argument that social media has not been great for society. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of bad that has come from it, and
Yeah.
we're becoming a really weird society that previous generations, we're struggling with a lot of things that previous generations didn't struggle with.
Yeah.
But this is a whole new level of just bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're definitely in deep now, and we got to find some way to fix it.
And whatever that is, I have no idea.
Yep, me either. And if us professionals can't, who's going to find a solution?
I don't know.
Anyway, that's a little bit of a downer.
So many downers this episode.
Yeah.
Confusion, but...
On to the next topic. All right, so in a little bit less depressing news and pessimistic news, we have some news about Huawei.
I think I remember that company.
Yeah. So, in the past, and we've already addressed this, but we'll address it one more time because we really want to be correct about the facts. We said that we didn't think Huawei should be banned. Going back and looking at the facts of what Huawei has been doing and what exactly they've been doing, I have renounced that.
Yeah, we both did.
We
talked about that. Was that last episode?
Maybe it was last episode. We corrected ourselves
at some
two
point.
episodes back, one episode back.
Yeah.
We corrected ourselves. Huawei did some bad things, and we think they should be banned.
And we do think that they are indeed a threat to national security, which was a point that we made a couple episodes. We just basically got our facts wrong a little bit. And that's okay. We make mistakes. We're not perfect.
Yeah, everybody makes mistakes.
This is the best tech podcast, though.
Yeah, no.
Definitely.
We make the least mistakes.
Exactly.
So, we renounced that. So, Huawei is now being allowed to work with U.S. companies.
So, basically, the ban has been partially lifted.
Partially. Important word there. So, Huawei will be allowed to buy from U.S. companies, which is good for them, because otherwise they would most certainly.
Yeah, we went over this a couple weeks ago. How they would no longer be able to use things like micro SD cards, Qualcomm processors,
huge things that they really need to be able to use. Android. But now they will be allowed to buy from U.S. companies, but they will not be allowed to sell in the U.S.
So they're still banned from operating in the U.S. Because why?
Because they are a threat to national security.
Yeah.
So having phones in the U.S. is a little bit scary. And this was a deal made by Donald Trump, and it came after a meeting with the president of China, I believe, right? And they met, and after a good meeting, they decided this, and it was personally, I love this decision. I think we are protecting ourselves, but we are also also encouraging economic growth in the U.S.
I think it's great because, I don't know, it seems a little I mean, they did do some bad things.
They did some very bad things.
Let's not screw over a company that's not operating in the U.S. anymore.
Yeah.
We don't, because, I mean, U.S. is amazing. Let's just economically, we got awesome products, things like that. You know what I mean? And so, when we just completely ban a country from buying U.S. products...
Yeah, that cripples them so much. So, I think allowing them here to be able to buy here, not sell here, is a great idea. So that's really all we have there. Just sort of a follow-up for all that Huawei news.
Yeah.
Some more China news. Apple is moving production of the Mac Pros, the cheese graters, from Texas to China.
Why?
Cheaper labor, I guess. Cheaper production.
That's ridiculous. I mean, here we have great news economically for the United States, and then we have some bad news economically.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I mean, I understand it. You want cheaper. You want to be able to produce things cheaper. It makes sense.
The thing costs $5,000.
It's not like It's not like their profit margins are hurting that much.
No.
I mean, that cheese grater effect on the front is not that hard to make. So it's kind of annoying. I mean, like, Apple's gonna charge us $8,000 for something and then move it out of the U.S. and.
I mean, I don't know. This is something that I was talking about a while back with some friends.
Mm-hmm.
Is that, are you willing to pay more for something knowing that it's made entirely or mostly in the United States?
Mm-hmm.
You know, paying that premium of knowing that you're supporting a company that's based in your country rather than overseas where economies are a world's difference, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing you're paying the same amount, if not way more than the previous Mac Pros for a product that's not being manufactured in the United States, that's a little annoying, I'd say. I think it's interesting. There's this whole debate right now on whether or not we should buy from China, and obviously the whole Huawei thing makes us a little concerned about China. But whether or not you're willing to pay more or less for a product that's manufactured in the United States or not is an interesting move.
Yeah.
An interesting debate.
Yeah, so I mean, that's all we really have for China news.
Yeah, so much China all of a sudden. So much Facebook and Twitter, and now we've moved on to China. Let's talk about Slack really fast.
Yep, we talked about them a while back.
Last episode, I believe it was.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it wasn't a while back. It was last episode.
Yeah. It feels like a long time ago.
A full week not talking about tech?
Yeah.
How am I going to survive?
I don't know. But let's talk about Slack really fast. So we remember they went public last week on the New York Stock Exchange, and people were really excited about that, you know.
Yeah.
So here we got this big tech startup now going public on the stock exchange.
And things are going well for them?
Not quite. They're down from when they opened, which leads people to think that they were probably overpriced their stock price. Over what, I forget what the word is, like over. They were just, the price was set too high. People weren't that excited, it turns out. So
I wonder who could have predicted that.
We did.
Yeah, us. Oh, wow. That was us.
We got that right, yeah. The hype, they were overhyped basically in terms of stock. I can't believe I forgot the term, but they were overhyped, and so the stock price is down. But what was actually interesting about Slack was they actually went down yesterday. So on Friday, Slack just crashed entirely. So millions of people, you know, so many companies that rely on Slack to do their work, suddenly they have no idea what they're doing because Slack is down.
Yep.
And that didn't really impact their stock price, surprisingly. I mean, they had this massive outage.
Every company has outages.
But thought that was kind of interesting. Here we are, a week into their life of being public, and they crash. Yeah,
I mean, we predicted that it wouldn't go great, and I think it's just going to get worse from here.
Really? What do you mean by getting worse?
I think their stock prices are going to go even lower.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was interesting. The point we made last week was Spotify and how Spotify's price is just way down. Yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot to say about it. A lot of times these Silicon Valley startups,
when they go public,
they just get overhyped, and you know, the whole idea of this startup going big, going public, you know, it's like this ultimate success story, and investors really buy into that. You know, we're really going to change the world let's change the world one step at a time. Yeah. Just overhauling chat and email and workplace chat. It's not super revolutionary.
Yeah, it's not as big as they say it is, but yeah. Slack went down.
Yeah.
It's kind of annoying and
kind of funny.
Yeah, kind of funny.
The timing is just perfect.
Exactly. 1 week after we predicted that it wouldn't go great.
Yeah, they didn't go great. They have an issue. Things crashed, and that's how life works. But thank you all so much for listening to this week's episode of your favorite tech podcast.
The best one out there. And you know, while we're on the best podcast, don't you just think the best podcast, the best tech podcast out there deserves 5 stars on Apple Podcasts?
Definitely.
I do.
I think maybe if I had an iPhone, I would go leave 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you have an Apple device, go on Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. It really, really helps.
Pro tip:
Mm-hmm.
we know most of you out there are listening on Apple Podcasts, so chances are you're listening to this show on Apple Podcasts. So make sure you leave that 5-star review. We will find you if you do not.
And we will make you listen to much worse
stuff.
But yeah, that's all we have this week. It was a really good week.
Yeah, lots of great topics, lots of great discussion, lots of big tech news going on this week, which is great because it's a tech show.
Yep.
You got to have good tech news to make a great tech show. Thank you all so much for listening, talking tech with us. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for talking tech.